Hello, podcast listener. Our guest today is Charley Johnson, Executive Director of the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo CVB, plus a legendary broadcaster. We talk about where he grew up, how he ended up in front of a camera, and why he's at the CVB today. Plus, Tucker and I have an extensive talk about trash, both Atlantic City style and Fargo style. So sit back and relax and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. This episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. Natalie has a proven track record to get your home sold faster and for more money. She is consistently focused on her clients' needs and wants throughout the entire process and make sure that they are well taken care of. If you're looking to buy or sell, reach out to Natalie today. On average, Natalie sells a home every 3.74 days. That's at least 2 a week. And last year, Natalie earned her clients on average over $4,000 above list price on their homes. And you don't have to take our word for it. Here's some of the great reviews Natalie has received. I was overwhelmingly impressed with Natalie and all the Hatch team. She was very responsive and responded to all of the emails within an hour. She gave great advice and encouragement from the listing and pictures, the offer, and all the closing details. The marketing team knew exactly how to promote my property, and I was pleased by how soon and easily my property received an offer. I was actually dreading selling my condo, and Natalie did such an awesome job that I felt like I really didn't need to do anything. The thing I most appreciated was that she really listened to what I wanted to do and respected my decisions. I would definitely recommend Natalie and all the Hatch Realty team. They made this process so wonderful. That was from Diane. So listen, if you're in the mood to buy or sell a home, give Natalie a call right now. You can reach her at 701-388-9338. Natalie, Natalie, at hatchrealtyfm.com, or you can go to livefargomoorhead.com. That's livefargomoorhead.com and find out some information. Huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
When I started my business, I adopted a highway, and I cleaned 1.5 miles.
You and the Ku Klux Klan have that in common.
Oh, do we? I hope that's the only thing that we have in common. But I cleaned a section of Highway 200 north of Hillsboro leading up to the Crystal Sugar Beet Plant. And here's what I learned when I would go clean the highway. Why are we littering so much? And things we shouldn't even be thinking about littering.
Right.
I can't believe some of the junk that we picked up, where it's clear someone just threw a bag of garbage into the ditch and then it ripped open and the garbage went everywhere.
You could argue that you were enabling them by picking up after them, JJ.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I mean, I see where you're coming from. That's a very beatnik way of thinking about it. Can I ask this means this.
Can I ask you, though, what was it that inspired you to do that? Why did you want to, as a business owner, adopt a part of the highway?
Because I thought it would be a good way to promote my business. So I think it looks good, right?
That blue sign that says this owned by line benders.
Yeah, this highway is taken care of by the line benders. So it was purely to just entrench ourselves in the fact that we're part of North Dakota. We're a North Dakota business, but it became something that I had more passion for. And I really first thought about it. My uncle Chuck adopted a chunk of highway just to make his community better. And I remember my cousins talking about how, like, every Saturday he would get some of them up occasionally and they'd have to come help. Like, if they're in trouble, they'd have to come help clean the highway. But I think he still might have that piece of highway that he's adopted. And it's such a cool program. It's such a great program.
It's a great idea. I love the concept of it. And there was recently sort of a internet meme that that picked up a hashtag, I think it's called trash tag, that I think there's still a lot of people that do it, where you would basically do a before and after picture of, say, a local park that's covered in litter, and you do it before and then you show after where you've gone and picked all of it up and it's all bagged up and you're showing what you did that day. And you can kind of get social internet points from other people by doing it, and it kind of makes me want to go Marie Kondo some public park somewhere.
And you should. That's the thing, is if you pick up one piece of garbage that you see at a park and everybody who walked through the park in a day did that, the park would be clean.
Right.
And I think, you talk about enabling, trash begets trash. If people see that there's no respect for an area, they're not going to respect it. And sure, there's people who will throw a hamburger wrapper in a perfectly clean field, but I think more people are enticed to do it and think it's all right to do it if they already see trash there.
It stands out a lot too in a community like this, where we have all this green space. So the trash on top of the green space really shows up.
Fargo is the city of parks. That's our motto.
You know who could really use some TLC when it comes to trash is Atlantic City.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about Atlantic City a little bit in today's episode, and it made me think about the one time I went to AC when I was still doing poker television. And Atlantic City is basically like a 5 or 6 square block of like tall, wealthy buildings surrounded by just trash. Just trash. Absolutely everywhere. Everything is rotting on the outside of that. And that's a place that could really use some trash tag love.
It really could. Well, there's the beaches in Atlantic City. I would not walk on them without boots.
Yeah, their visitors bureau isn't doing its job.
No, it's not. They're not engaging the residents of Atlantic City. But that's the problem, right? If your whole life is cleaning up after the people who are visiting, how much pride do you want to take in that community? Now, we are the opposite here in Fargo-Moorhead, West Fargo. And I think it's because this is a great place to be. It's a great place to visit. It's a wonderful place to live. And Charley Johnson is our guest today. And we, of course, touch on the fact that his job is the executive director of the Fargo-Moorhead, West Fargo Visitor and Conventions Bureau. And we talk about things that Fargo could use. We talk about things that are being done, a great initiative that's coming up, and hopefully some help from the state level. Plus, we also get to really talk to Charley about who he is. There was a time, I mean, he pinpoints a moment in his life where he hit one of those crossroads. And it is such an interesting story about how Charley Johnson, the roadie, became Charley Johnson, the broadcaster. And it's a lot of fun things I did not know. And it kind of makes me want to take a trip to Hastings, Minnesota. He speaks about it so lovingly. So maybe the next time we talk to Charley, we'll drive down to Hastings and he can give us a tour of that, even though he's not part of the Hastings CVB. He's part of our CVB. So sit back and enjoy this episode with Charley Johnson, a legend in local broadcasting, as well as a legend in promoting the space where we record JJ Meets World.
JJ Meets World.
Charley Johnson, guest in the studio today. So this is kind of a big deal because I remember as a young man waiting for you to say that school is canceled the next day on the evening news. That was a big deal.
That's all a lot of people ever cared about, including the parents, I think, some of them. Having been one myself,
So let's start even before that. So where are you from?
I grew up in Minnesota, various places. I was born in Montevideo, but I never really lived there. I think my parents moved away 2 weeks after I was born. So we lived in St. Paul when I was very young, and then I think when I was 4, we moved to Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and lived there for 10 years. So I went through junior high, through 8th grade in Fergus Falls. And then my dad was a pharmacist, and he had traveled for many years for Eli Lilly Company, as what they called a detail man. You would think of them as a pharmaceutical rep now. And in those days, they were all pharmacists because there weren't the wholesale houses, and they actually took the orders and sent the stuff to the doctors and the drugstores. But then he bought his own drugstore in Hastings, Minnesota. So that's where I graduated from high school. Went through Hastings High School, which Hastings is it was a small town, sleepy town along the Mississippi River, but now it's pretty much a suburb of St. Paul. The town grew out to it. So right on the Mississippi River, beautiful place to ride bike and run around, and had a good time there.
Did you pick up a guitar as a kid?
I picked up a guitar in 7th grade, yes. Banjo first, actually.
Really?
Yes. I wanted to be the Kingston Trio. That could only be one of them. Excuse me. But that was my inspiration. And so I learned, I got a hold of a 5-string banjo somewhere, probably at Roy Olson Music in Fergus Falls. And then I didn't really have anyone to teach me. So I was in the junior high school. There were a couple band teachers, and I said to one of them, I think his name was Mr. Headland, great guy. And I told him I wanted to learn how to play the banjo, and I asked him if he knew anybody who would teach it. And he says, no, I don't. I don't think anyone in town that I know of plays the banjo. He said, but I'd like to learn too, and I actually have one. He said, so why don't I give you lessons and we'll kind of learn together? So I took lessons from him for about a year on Saturdays downtown, and we learned the finger picking and all that stuff. And then ultimately I bought a guitar and I taught myself the guitar. But the lessons I had on the banjo really helped. I mean, there's so many similarities, you know. It's the reason, this is way too far into the weeds for you, but it's the reason when I finger pick my guitar, if anybody ever notices, and I've seen a few others like me, and I think this is probably the same reason, I rest my little finger, my pinky finger on my right hand on the pick guard while I'm picking with my other fingers, whereas a lot of players will just pick freehand. That's because that's the way you learn to do it on the banjo. So that, you know, I didn't even know that until I noticed some other guys picking it differently.
So if you want to spot a banjo player in a crowd of guitarists, look for the pinky finger.
Pretty good chance he's got his pinky on the guitar and he's using the other 4 fingers to pick.
Do you still play the banjo? You ever pick it up?
A little bit. Our little band that we have like 1 or 2 songs that I play the banjo on. A lot of times, though, I'll bring my banjo to the Sons of Norway gig, and then we'll never play the songs that I played on. So I just pack it up and take it home again. I don't spend a lot of time on it. I kind of wish I did. I probably would play it more, but my friend Michael J. Olson, who's in our band, has a 6-string banjo that he plays quite a bit when I'm playing guitar. So we get the sound without...
I mean, I'd love to see a dueling banjo set at one point. You know?
Whoa, I don't know if either of us is at that level, JJ. It'd be a lot of strumming and a little bit of picking.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a good time. It's fun.
Do you find that banjo players? So my father-in-law plays the banjo, and there is sort of a brotherhood of banjo players. A lot of people play the guitar, but the banjo is a little more refined. So when you find someone who plays the banjo, there's sort of that kinship.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a very delicate instrument if you think about it. I don't think a lot of people, when they hear it, think of it as delicate. But if you listen to someone who's really a good picker on the banjo, Steve Martin, great example,
phenomenal, who
learned from John McEwen of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, a lot of what he did because he toured with them for so long. You know, it's very intricate, very delicate. And you can make a lot of different sounds with the banjo. So yes, I think there is a little bit of a brotherhood. I wish I had stayed with it more. Now, when I was young, I would actually use the finger picks, you know, which you really should on a banjo. But now, after years of picking the guitar with just my bare fingers, I've tried that, and I feel like I'm Edward Scissorhands. You know, I just can't make it happen anymore. I'm too old, too set in my ways. So when I do play the banjo, I pick it, but I just use my fingers and fingernails.
And so is the pick, does it look like a ring, but it's reversed, or how does that work?
It's a ring that sits on the tip of your finger, but then it's like you have a fake plastic nail, only it's on the front of your finger on the back. I do know some guys, guitarists, and probably maybe some banjo players too, but I know some guitarists for sure who actually use acrylic nails for picking. Mm-hmm. I've seen that, and I don't know if I want to do that. But I can see why it would work if you got them glued on good. It'd be great if you learned how to use them.
And does anyone actually just grow their nails out to an insane thing?
I think some people do. Everybody has a different view of that. I think every guitar player would tell you something different.
Isn't that big in like flamenco guitar? Like some styles, you'll see it more often than others because of the types of flourishes that they're doing.
I don't know a lot about flamenco guitar, Tucker, but that could be. You were very, very right.
There's probably a flamenco expert out there going, Tucker doesn't know what he's talking about either, man.
No, I've never. That's one style I've never learned. But yeah, I think probably that would make sense. I like to keep mine just kind of even. I'm more interested in the fingers. Well, I'm interested in the fingernails on both hands. This is really a weird conversation.
That's fine.
Who cares about my fingernails?
Welcome to JJ Meets World.
You want to keep the ones on your left hand trimmed because otherwise they get in the way when you're pressing on the frets, right? And then on the right hand, it's a little bit different thing. My biggest a bugaboo is getting a torn fingernail on one of your picking fingers. Oh, Lord, that's bad.
Yeah.
You know, you're playing along, something tears, and all of a sudden your finger's just caught on the G string, you know? Ugh. I probably should have picked a different string, the B string, and it hurts, and it screws up the rhythm, and then you're just kind of like, now how do I get out of this, you know? And then you can't. You have to finish the song unless you're at home, then you can stop it. And you got to get it trimmed up. But
practice, like, everyone, hold on. I gotta grab a nail clipper real quick.
And here's another. This will be my last thing about grooming for guitarists.
I think that's the title of the episode. Is grooming for guitarists.
There are a lot of great guitarists who might be listening to this, going, you know, he doesn't know what he's talking about. The other thing that I dread most, which is the downside of our winters here. You know how dry your hands get in the winter, and you get those little cracks in your fingertips. They hurt so much. It's just, you know, your skin dries up and it cracks, and then, you know, if I get one of those, it's like, how am I going to play? But I usually, you know, I pour some liquid bandage over it and make it work. But that's awful. So.
Years ago, I picked up the ukulele, and because of course, you know, there's nothing funnier than a chubby dude with a ukulele, right? It's comedy gold.
Is he?
Right.
Nobody laughed at him.
No, nobody did. In fact, he's got albums. You know, unfortunately, he died of, I think, a heart complication too young. Yeah. So I don't want that to be the issue with me. But I was like, I'm going to learn how to play the ukulele and then just get a couple songs, right? I do not have that skill set in my hands, like trying to move my fingers everywhere. And I ended up cutting the dickens out of my hands a couple times because I moved it too fast and pushing too hard.
Maybe you should have started with nylon strings.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Things I don't know.
Yeah. That's the thing, you know, you just have to build
nylon
up calluses.
Strings, huh?
You know?
Yeah, that's what they. I've got the hands of a soft man, you know, of a man. If this were
those
of
are
mice
Netflix
and men,
hands. Yeah, that's what those are right there.
If this were of mice and men, I'd be curly with the one glove to keep it soft for my wife.
So you're not up there hauling things up to the Block 9 building here across the street. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I did commercial kitchens and construction for like 3 years of my life.
Well, you had some calluses then.
No, I always wore gloves.
Oh, that makes sense. Sure.
Yeah, and I was the guy when I'd go out to eat with all the other burly construction guys, and they're ordering, you know, half-pound burgers with barbecue sauce and bacon on it, and I'm like, "Do you have a grilled cheese on the menu?" So I just never
over
fit
there.
in. Yeah, exactly, right. But I do really appreciate. I've caught a couple of your gigs.
Yes, I think I know we've played some places where you were. Yes,
I love it. Moving parts.
That's
right?
us. Yeah,
it's a ton of fun, and you can tell it's just a bunch of friends getting together to play.
That's right. That's the best thing we have going for us is that people can tell we're having fun, so they overlook the mediocrity of it all. I think to some degree we have our moments, you know, but yeah, we have a great time. And I always, when we're having fun and people say, you guys look like you're having so much fun, I always am reminded of that show, A Mighty Wind, one of the Christopher Guest movies about folk music, which I loved. And the promoter there, the guy promoting, you know, I can't remember the name of the guy who plays him, but he's kind of a nebbishy kind of guy. And can you say that?
Yeah.
Nebbish isn't a bad thing anymore.
No.
It's just, but it's a
Some people wear it as pride.
Yeah. And I think this guy does for sure, the actor, because he's always played it. Anyway, he says, he's talking about this group that's clearly modeled after the Kingston Trio, and he's introducing him. He says, they're the kind of infectious that's good to pass around. And I like to think about the moving parts that way.
A Mighty Wind is easily one of my favorite movies of all time.
Mine too.
And my mom was never a moviegoer. She loved to read books and occasionally would watch something on the television, but she wasn't a big moviegoer. But she tried really hard to connect with me at one point in my love of movies. Cool. So I remember on Father's Day going to A Mighty Wind, and she's like, we're going to bring your grandfather, and we're going to bring your sister, and we're going to go see a movie, something you can pick whatever you want. Yeah. So I picked A Mighty Wind, which is already an out there idea for them to watch this mockumentary. So we sit there, we watch the movie, and then it gets nominated for Best Original Song for the Academy Awards.
It did. It should have won.
I agree, right? Yeah. And Eugene
Those
Levy.
People have no taste.
No taste at all. And Catherine O'Hara, they come out as their characters, Mitch and Mickey, they perform the song. Yeah. The next day, still my mom trying to really like connect with me goes, did you know that they were a couple? And that kiss was something they did at the end of their shows, and they recreated. They haven't seen each other for years, and I was like, "Mom, you know,
oh no,
that this is fake, right?" And she's like, No. Like what it is they reunited them for this documentary that they made. And I'm like, no. That is, and I was trying my hardest. And I thought, like, that's the mom from Home Alone.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh,
That's the dad from American Pie.
right. I'm like,
They're actresses and actors.
and you saw that movie.
Part of me wanted you to just play along.
And I did for long enough
I think
before.
our kids play along with us quite often. You know, like, yeah, that's right, Dad.
I just didn't want her to go out into the world and
that's
have everyone
true.
being like, Patty Gordon really couldn't figure out the joke behind A Mighty Wind.
She doesn't get the movie.
But a great movie.
God love her.
Phenomenal movie, right?
It is. It's wonderful. The music was good too.
So let's take a turn back to how you end up in Fargo, North Dakota.
Concordia College. I went to Concordia. I was in Hastings, and Concordia actually came down and recruited at Hastings High School. This was a long time ago. I don't know if I should tell you how long ago. Fine. It was 1968 was when I graduated from high school.
There you go.
A momentous year in history, by the way. And Concordia recruited, but I was very interested in journalism, actually. Wonderful thing. We had a great English teacher. I thought he was great. He was great. A guy named Schultz. I'm blanking out on his first name because I've known so many other Schultzes in my life, and I don't want to anyway, he was an English teacher, young guy, graduated from MSU, in fact. It was MSU at the time. And he came down, he was teaching English, and he convinced the Hastings High School principal to let him teach a journalism class at the high school. And at the same time, I was very interested in sports, big baseball fan, knew I was never going to be a player, but I thought maybe I could have a broadcasting career in sports. So this all kind of dovetailed. And he taught this journalism class. He was really good at it. There were like 12 or 13 of us in it. And he took it very seriously. We talked a lot about the Vietnam War, you know. Like, I'll never forget one of the questions he asked us. He said, so if you were a journalist, this was probably halfway through the semester. He says, if you were a journalist today, where's the one place that if you were a true journalist, where's the one place you want to go and cover the news? And a couple of us said, well, that would probably be Vietnam, because that's where it's happening. You know, there were lots of other options too. But then he would send us out to do stories and just kind of lit the fire in me. And at the same time, I had gotten a job at the local radio station because I saw that the guy who did their sports had a slip disc or something, and he was incapacitated for like 6 months right during the high school baseball season. And Hastings had a really good baseball team that was expected to go to the state tournament. So I saw the owner of the radio station up there doing these games. I think I know he hates this because I know him because he sells advertising to my dad. We go to the same church. So one night I boldly went over to his house and said, hey, Dave Bedoin was his name. I said, hey, Dave, you know, I write for the high school paper. I'm a big baseball fan. I see that your guy, Paul, I think his name was Paul, can't work at, I'd love to do those games for you. And he looks at me, he's like, okay, so here's the other thing. We'll think about that. He says, but I also need somebody to work Sundays at the radio station. So he hands me this study book to get a third-class radio operator's license, which you needed to have to run a dawn to dusk AM radio station, because it was going to be just me there with the transmitter. You know, the transmitter was outside of town, but I had the remote control. So I had to go, I studied it, went up to St. Paul, took the test, got my license, and then I started working Sundays at the radio station. And then he paired me with another guy who actually had gone to Concordia for a couple of years, who was at Brown Institute, and he and I did those baseball games. Turned out that guy, Bob Kerr, who ended up being the general manager of WDAZ for many, many years. So paths cross. It's a small broadcasting world. And that's how I got into broadcasting, really.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then I wanted, so I had a scholarship, a first semester Minnesota High School Press Association scholarship to go to the University of Minnesota from the revered chair of that program, a guy named Mitchell Charley, who anyone of my age or even somewhat younger would remember. He was revered around the world as this great journalism professor. And I had a letter signed by him. I still have it somewhere. Where, you know, congratulations, first quarter tuition covered.
And all because of a slip disc, some other guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because someone didn't put like the floor is wet, we just mop sign down.
I think it happened when he was getting out of bed, but whatever. You know, weird things happen. But then I went through the process, and I had my computer card to register at the U, and but I'd also applied to Concordia, was accepted there. So that was basically my choice. And the weird thing I remember is when I was a senior, I'm ready. I accepted at both those places, and I had a bunch of friends who graduated the year before me. And Hastings is like, a 30-minute drive from any college in the Twin Cities. And so a bunch of these friends would come home every weekend. We'd still get to hang out with them. I thought that was really great. And then about Christmas time, I had this light bulb moment because these guys are there every weekend. And I'm thinking, they haven't made any new friends. They went to college and they're not really in the college life. They keep coming back here and hanging out with us, which is great. We love them. But I thought, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I, in the end, I don't think I would have. I probably would have stayed up there. But it scared me to think that I would just end up back where I came from. Not that I didn't love it, but I just wanted more. So then that's when I decided, I think I'm going to go to Concordia. It's a little bit safer distance, and I won't be able to go home every weekend. And
right, you're coming home for holidays.
Yeah. And I was horribly homesick when I got up here. And it's only, it's 200, well, from Hastings, like 250 miles. I was horribly homesick for my friends, but I got into theater. And then I did go home for high school homecoming. My first airplane flight ever, I discovered you could fly from Fargo to Minneapolis for like $35 round trip. And even then, that was pretty cheap. So my dad let me do that. And then I was okay after that. And then by the time Christmas came around, I was home with my friends, loved it, having a great time. And I realized after Christmas, hanging out with my pals, including even the girlfriend I was breaking up with at the time.
Bummer.
No, it was good. It was good for both of us. And I realized that I was anxious to go back to school. So that was like a big turning point. From then on, I just, I loved it up here. I didn't necessarily think I'd stay in Fargo my whole life, but that's the way it worked out. Sometimes, it's the whole sliding doors theory. You've seen that movie,
Yep,
right?
sure
I
have.
haven't seen it in ages. Isn't Gwyneth Paltrow on that?
She is.
Very young. What choice do you make? What if I'd gone to the University of Minnesota? Well, I probably still would have been in broadcasting because that's what but I don't know if I would. Maybe I would have ended up working here. Who knows? A lot of people from the U came up here and worked. So it's just funny, how things go.
So you graduate from Concordia, and what's the next step after that?
Well, actually, my first full-time job, which only lasted like 3 weeks, because I got another one that I really decided I wanted. I was basically a roadie for Neil Diamond for 3 weeks.
What?
I worked for the sound company that did all of his concerts, and they hired me. We knew them because at Concordia, I was in charge of what we then called student productions. And Student Productions booked all of the concerts at Concordia. And at that time, the Concordia Fieldhouse was basically the biggest house in town. So we could get pretty big concerts. And I started working in that with my friends like when I was a sophomore. So, and then when I was a senior, I was in charge, whatever they call it, commissioner or whatever, And the college really let us do all this stuff. I mean, I had my own business manager, and we booked bands. We handled all the finances. I booked Dionne Warwick, Mary Travers, Ricky Nelson, and the Stone Canyon Band.
Really?
Who were great. It was the only show I lost money on. I booked him because I thought they were great, but that was when he was doing rock and roll, and had a really great band with him. And then 3 weeks after they played, or maybe a month after they played, his big hit, Garden Party, hit. And everybody, excuse me, remembered Ricky, and they loved him. And if that had just happened a month earlier, I would have sold that show out. And then I booked a group in the spring. I booked a group called Bread. Remember Bread?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
David Gates and Bread, right? Okay, this was the opposite, exactly the opposite. I got the money back because I booked them in January, and at the time for a flat fee of like $7,500, which was a decent amount of money in those days. And then they released an album, and from the time I booked them, we were going to do like 3,000 seats or 2,500 seats. We could do more. I'm sorry. Saturday morning, come on, guys. So from the time I booked them, they did this album, came out, and they had 4 #1 hits between the time I booked them and they showed up in April at the end of the school year. And the promoter and promoter kept calling me, says, "Can you add seats?" And I kept adding seats. So instead of $7,500, they went out with almost 12,000. We had a huge show. It was great. They were hugely popular.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So that worked out.
Had you locked them in at that 7,500, or was it going up, getting closer as their popularity?
What happened was we switched when he said, "Can you add seats?" Because we could switch to a percentage. Because they would some shows would book for a guarantee because they weren't sure how they'd sell, I guess. And Brad at that time had a couple hits, but they weren't gigantic. But then as soon as those songs started hitting, that's when the promoter said, if you can add seats, we'll switch to a percentage. That's what happened.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
I think it was, they switched instead of 7,500 flat, it went to like, I forget, 65% or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Colleges really don't do that anymore.
Not that I know of, yeah.
They'll bring in a comedian maybe or someone on a speaking circuit, but no one's really doing bands anymore.
Well, it's kind of, I think the business has moved away from that. There are just so many people who saw how much money you could make doing it because we made money, and we didn't have a lot of overhead because we were all students. I got paid $150 a semester to be the commissioner of student productions, which, even then was chicken feed, but it was fine, it gave me a little spending money. So we didn't really have a lot of overhead. College insured us. My friend Louis Svensson was the one who got me into it first when I was a sophomore, and he booked Blood, Sweat, and Tears when they were at the peak.
Really?
He got lucky. They were on a tour that was bringing him up north, but they were very expensive. They wanted a guarantee of $15,000. Nobody had ever heard of that before, and the tickets, oh my goodness, the tickets might have to be $10, some of them. So he took it to the college lawyer, and the lawyer said, he didn't know anything about music. He was reading the thing, and he says, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, that's a funny name. I remember that from World War II. $15,000! So they had to calm him down and then say, "Look, they are really big, and we made money on it, so it was good. They were great.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we got to see some really cool acts.
Well, I think it's different too when you see them in a venue that, even at 3,000 people, it seems very intimate by today's standards.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and we could, I think, for a whole house, if we did it with the stage on the far end, which we did for a couple shows, we could get like 5,000 people in there. So that was pretty big. And then NDSU built the new BSA about that time, so they started booking too. I tried to work a co-op deal with them to try to get Neil Diamond up here because he was huge at the time, but I just never was able to work it out.
One of our previous guests' marriage fell apart because of Neil Diamond. What's the name? Do you remember the name of Phil's episode?
I don't know off the top of my head, no.
It's a good one with our buddy Phil Goodell.
Was Neil personally involved, or did it have something to do with his music?
It had something to do so long story short, his wife and his mother-in-law obsessed with Neil Diamond. He comes to the Dome. You probably remember that when
I was there, I think.
Okay.
That's the last time I saw him.
So was Phil. They got Phil a ticket to go to Neil Diamond for
in the mid-'90s, right?
Right.
Yeah.
For his birthday or Christmas. And he said, "This is great. Just so you know, I don't really know any Neil Diamond songs." And so he goes and he can sing along to Sweet Caroline. But other than that, he doesn't know any of the lyrics. So he's just taking in the show. Sure. Afterwards, they claimed he ruined Neil Diamond for them because he wasn't excited enough.
He wasn't
at the
a big
show.
enough fan?
Yeah. So
Wasn't expressive enough, apparently.
between the end of the concert and the drive back to Valley City, where the mother-in-law was living with them at the time, I think
they broke up.
The marriage was over. And so Phil, it's to his chagrin whenever Sweet Caroline is played in front of a big group, and he'll be the one who's like, "Guys, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick."
So I don't even know Phil, and I feel bad for him. But has this led to him every night going to sleep weeping to like all of the Neil Diamond songs that he never knew, and suddenly loves the guy, and he ruined my marriage? But now I look. No.
I think Neil Diamond did him a favor. I mean,
Right, that's what I think too.
If your marriage is so weak that your wife can't read the fact and be mature enough to realize, hey, this isn't for you, and it's got to lead to the end of a marriage. It probably was on sinking sand at that time already.
Possibly. And I'm, now I feel like not knowing either of them, I'm treading on very thin ice. So I'm going to stop talking about Phil and his ex-wife.
I am the guy, though, who, when Phil told me the story, was like, "But you gotta love Brother Loves Traveling Salvation Show." And he's like, "I've never heard it." Like, "You've never heard it?" And so I forced him on a road trip to start listening to these. And I feel like the exact same thing was happening to us, where I was forcing him to listen to Neil Diamond.
And he's not your friend anymore.
Yeah, and he's like, "You guys, it's not gonna work out in the long run."
So the trip I took out there with them was to go to the Greek Theater. He did 10 nights at the Greek Theater in the summer of 1972. Awesome. And I drove an 8-ton truck full of equipment. That was an experience for a guy who'd never driven maybe I'd driven a pickup. I don't know, but through the mountains.
Oof.
It was the first time when I realized I was coming down this hill in the mountains. Never driven in the mountains before in Utah, I think it was.
Oh, how did you not die? All of those things together at the same time
Yeah,
are just horrible.
The thing that really set me off was when I saw they actually had what they called runaway truck lanes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yep.
so it happens then.
Oh, yeah.
Must happen often because
Yeah.
you got a runaway truck lane with deep sand in it. So if your brakes aren't working, you just slide in there, whoop, Okay, well, I guess that's good to know, but scared the heck out of me. So yeah, it was good. And then, and so we did these 10 nights and they recorded it. And that was the Hot August Night album.
Really?
I can find my picture on the album. Only I can find it because it's the centerfold of the album, is a 2-record set. You open it up and it was looking out over his shoulder from the stage and you could see the sound booth out in the middle.
Make sure you're right on that mic there.
And there are some blurry guys out there. And I can write because I knew what jacket I was wearing. I can pick myself out. I was standing right there on headset, So.
The closest I've got to even like dreaming of what that could be like is I was once featured on the front page of Dave Matthews' website.
Really?
It's a great picture of Dave Matthews like turning towards the band with his guitar, and you can see my face. It's blurry, but I mean, you can definitely tell it's me standing by myself in the pit because my buddies had gone to go get a beer. And I'm wearing a goofy straw hat. And you can tell I'm wearing my shark tooth necklace, which is a necklace I wear when I go to Dave Matthews Band concerts.
Really? Well, that's great. I hope you have that framed somewhere.
I pull it up every now and then. Okay. It was really a calling card when I was in the dating scene.
Oh, I bet.
Because I once went to a Dave Matthews concert, guys. Yeah. I'd be like, oh, that's me. I'm pretty much Dave's best friend, as you can see from this photo. And they'll look at it and they're blurry and they're like, I don't know. That could be a lady. Be like, all right.
In a straw hat. Yeah.
What's your friend's name? So, how do you get into broadcasting in Fargo?
Prior to taking that job, this was the summer after I graduated from Concordia, and I had come up here. A friend of mine lived up here, and he took me around and introduced me to some broadcasters because I was still thinking that was really the way I wanted to go. And so while I was, and one of them was KNOX Radio in Grand Forks, I interviewed for a news job there. And while I was in L.A., I got a call from the guy at the hotel. By the way, we were staying at the Continental Hyatt House, otherwise known as the Riot House. Yeah. More stories there.
Oh,
anyway,
man.
So anyway, I got this call and he offered me a job to come and do radio news in Grand Forks. So now I'm like, now what am I going to do? But after like the first 6 nights in the Riot House, in the bar every night, Neil was paying. It dawned on me that I might become an alcoholic and maybe even a drug addict the way the music scene was. I mean, I wasn't really into that at all, but I could see how people get sucked into it. And in the bar drinking every night, I thought I should probably not embrace this lifestyle because I had some family members who had trouble with that. And plus, I did have a girlfriend at the time, and she was here. And so that may have played a large. Okay, it was part of it. Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I didn't. If I had stayed there, I don't know that we would have ever been married for the 46 years we have.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that worked out. So I left there. I told the guy, I said, I got to go back. I really want to be in broadcasting. It's what I wanted. This is a wonderful thing, and I thank you for the opportunity, but I just can't pass this up. So I went, and so I worked in radio news in Grand Forks, and that's how I got going.
What a fun way to get a taste of what that life could be like.
That's the way I feel about it. Yeah.
Right. Without having to, and like you have great stories about it. I'm sure you reminisce fondly.
Sure.
I mean, it seems like you're having a good time telling us about it. And I'm living vicariously through these stories and I'm having a blast.
I don't think about it that often except when somebody asks. And so, but it is fun to remember back to those days, At the Hyatt House, like I was in the elevator with Gordon Lightfoot. I was in the elevator with Johnny Winter. Many of your listeners don't know either of those guys, probably.
Oh, I know
Gordon Lightfoot, Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. He's still touring at 80, by the way.
Our listeners are a cultured people. I bet if they don't know, they'll be Googling them quick, and there'll be new fans at the end of this podcast.
Okay, well, I work with a lot of young people. I love them. They're wonderful people. And so I went to see... Michael and I went to see David Crosby and the Sky Trails tour a few weeks ago, and I went to work excitedly and told them, "You guys know who David Crosby is, right?" And they're like, "No." "Do you know what band he was in?" Nope. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Crosby, Stills and Nash. One said, "Oh, I think my dad had one of their records," and I'm like, "Oh!" I mean, in my mind, they're not the Beatles, but they're pretty big.
Oh, huge!
They were huge.
One day, JJ and I are going to be like, "Hey, do you guys know Radiohead?"
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to go, "What is on a head?"
Mm-hmm. How about Third Eye Blind? I remember those people from when our kids were growing up. But the biggest bugaboo I had was both of our sons were kind of into rap and for a while, and sadly they were big fans. I don't know why these were their favorites. The Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, Wu-Tang.
The RZA, the Jizza, and the ODB.
Yeah.
who for a while preferred to be called Baby Jesus.
Yeah.
I believe he's dead now.
He is.
Yeah. So anyway, culture is a strange thing.
Good for you to take an interest, though, right? And say, like, well, what are you listening to?
Right.
And,
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't have much choice because we'd go to like basketball tournaments and they'd have it on in the car. And at one point, Dan and I, our youngest son and I, and a couple of his teammates were heading down to a tournament in the Twin Cities. And about the time we got to Rogers, I said, "We have to turn that off. I can't listen to that anymore." And they said, "Okay." But it is good to know what they're listening to.
It is, right? And I was the kid who was born in the wrong generation, because if you flip through my CD wallet, it's things like Edison Lighthouse.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of folk music.
Yeah.
A lot of,
Good.
I
Good
thought
for you,
Jim
yeah.
Croce was one of the most talented individuals I'd ever heard growing
How
up.
soon
One
did
of
you
my-
get into musicals?
Oh, probably like when I was a junior in high school.
So you became a theater kid, and then you got into musicals. Okay.
Man, truly one of my, if not my all-time favorite songs is "Operator" by Jim Croce.
It's so good, right?
It's such a great song.
Yep.
And the Avid Brothers played it last spring when
they
they were
really?
here. Yes, I knew they did a cover of it because I'd seen it on YouTube, and then they said, "Hey, is anybody a Jim Croce fan?" It was Seth Avid and Bob Crawford just do it together. It's great.
My dad is a Jim Croce nut as well,
I
and
love
actually,
him.
he's the only musician that I know that my dad likes.
Really?
I mean, I'm sure Dad likes a number of them, but that's the only one I can ever remember Dad even talking about the fact that he liked him and would play him regularly. So Jim Croce to me is
good taste.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very talented guy.
When he is gone way too soon, and he has one of the honors of being one of the only individuals who had a #1 hit post-mortem.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. What song was it? By the way,
I don't
Operator
think
was the early ones. But,
and I don't think it was "Time in a Bottle."
Oh.
It must have been.
I sang
it'll
"Time in
come
a
to
Bottle"
me.
at one of my roommates' weddings.
Did you really?
Yeah, I never played it again, but I should learn it again. It was tricky at the time. I think I could play it now.
Yeah.
Fine, but yeah.
Interesting. So I'm from another generation who
That's
would have
good.
been that. So if you ever need somebody to back you up on it, be
Cool.
like, just
Yeah.
dial me up, put
JJ
me on
knows.
speakerphone, and be
Yeah.
like, Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah, they were fabulous. Well, and our kids kind of, especially our daughter, our oldest, she's the one who, I think it was like when she was a senior in high school, she saw that Peter, Paul, and Mary were on a reunion tour and playing Northrop Auditorium in the Twin Cities. She says, "We should go to that." So, okay.
Nice.
So we did, yeah.
There you go. Why not? You have a pretty storied career with broadcasting.
Well, I covered some stories, if that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, I think you ask people like name some of the broadcasters from this area, and your name is still pretty high there up on the list.
Oh, well, thank
know,
you. That's nice of you to say.
You and the Marv Bosserts and the Too Tall Tom Szymanskis, I think, are people that folks regularly talk about when they talk about watching the news.
Thank you. I was on just because you're on long enough. Sooner or later, they can't miss you.
It does become part of the local culture, though, too.
Yeah,
You know?
I wonder if it's still true as much. I think it is to some degree, but times have changed. But and I appreciate that. You do, and in a town like this, more people know you too personally, so that actually helps, I think.
Yeah, you really can't have a scandal in Fargo, North Dakota. Like, you can't be an awful person and be on the news, because I think people would eventually be like, I'm just not going to watch him anymore, or I'm not going to believe what she says because she's so rude at Target.
Yeah, well, that kind of thing can come into play, though. I mean, people, you do have to be careful. It took me a while to figure out, once I started being on TV, that everybody was looking. After a while, once you've been on long enough and people start to recognize you, then you have to think about that when you're out.
Interesting.
Yes.
Did you ever have like a moment where you thought, oh, people are just, I need some privacy right now. Like it's at this point, it's tough to go out to dinner in some cases.
It was never that bad for me, JJ. Was not flocked.
Charley Johnson groupies just at every door.
By
The
groupies.
paparazzi.
People
from the
would say
forum.
hi, but people here. That's the other thing about this community, which holds true even in my new career of tourism and hospitality. People here are almost unfailingly pleasant, even in this hyper hateful charged atmosphere, in the country right now. I still think people here are basically welcoming and friendly people, and that also showed itself when I was working in broadcasting, and I think all of my friends in broadcasting felt very much the same way. I mean, people will come up to talk to you, and sometimes they'll say some off-the-wall things, but they're usually very polite, and respectful. It's not like if you were in New York City. I mean, New York City's great, but people have a different attitude, in some of these other places around the country. And plus, they're so much bigger and so many people know you that it's difficult. So here, I just live my life, People would say, what's it like being on TV all the time, And I said, I still have to carry out the garbage, and I still have to go to the grocery store, and I still like to play with my kids, I mean, you have to...
I'm a human being too.
Huh?
I'm a human being.
Yeah, you have to live in the community and be part of the community. Everybody has a different way they approach that who works in the business. One of my favorite stories, though, is one time I was walking into Sears with my two boys who were probably 12 and 9 at the time or something. And this guy, clearly was an ag guy, a farmer, probably. Comes in, hey, Charlie, how are you doing? And I said, hey, good to see you. And he says, how many kids you got? These are handsome boys. How many kids you got? I said, well, we have 3. I have a daughter, too, who's older than these guys. He says, oh, well, 3, that's probably enough, huh? I said, yeah, I don't think we're going to have any more. He says, well, this day and age, it's a lot easier for the man to get fixed. You should just go take care of that. He says, it's a lot easier for the man to get fixed. That's what I did. He says, yeah, I did. He says, I did it, and I was up on the tractor again the next day. It's no problem. So I'm like, okay.
Your sons are like, Daddy, are you going to get fixed?
Yeah, thanks for the advice. The boys are like, what is he talking about, Dad? And I'm like, okay. But it was good advice. I did, so whatever.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And were you up on the tractor the next day?
Yeah.
No, but I was. This always comes out sounding funny to people, but I'm going to say it the way because it was true. The next day, I was out in the backyard hitting fly balls to the boys. So
Yeah. Nice.
Baseballs.
You're like, how come Charlie sounds like his voice got higher?
My local celebrity is exactly how I want it right now, where people will occasionally come up to me.
Sure. They'll recognize your voice. I bet.
They do.
You have a very
Absolutely.
distinctive voice. Very distinctive voice.
But my wife hates it because I want to appreciate this person coming up and giving me a compliment, or even when they're giving me a criticism.
Oh, yeah.
And so she goes, I play second fiddle to you or to strangers all the time. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
it's a big deal. I remember meeting Tom Szymanski when I was 10 years old, and it's like I was meeting Kirby Puckett.
Yeah.
It was like meeting a hero. And I want to hopefully give the same experience to other people, because I genuinely like to meet folks. I mean, that's why we're doing this podcast, right? I'm going to meet every person on planet Earth at one point.
Yeah. You're going to have to be on a long time.
Yep, that's
You're
the
going to have to
plan.
do more than a couple of weeks.
We're working with a couple of scientists to get it done.
Yeah, that is exactly right. And there are negative effects for your spouse. You probably also have gotten, the only reason anybody knows me is because of you, which is never true. Never been true. My wife was a labor and delivery nurse for 30 some years. Everywhere I go, someone comes up to me because they know I'm married to her, because they would, the other nurses, she didn't tell them, but the other nurses would tell them. And they will say, hey, your wife was the greatest nurse ever. She delivered our baby, helped deliver our baby. One year I was emceeing the chamber annual luncheon where they gave the awards away. This is many years ago. So it was like, I think David Martin was running the chamber then. So I'm emceeing it, right? Because I got to do that stuff. You get to do that stuff all the time. And these two guys who got the big award get up there to accept their award. And I'm sitting in front waiting for them to get done so I can wrap up the show. And they say, before we say anything, I got to tell Charlie, your wife delivered, one of them said, delivered our first child. She was the greatest nurse in the world. This is like 800 people in the room. I'm like, okay, see, it works. I was sorry she wasn't there. It would have been good, but I told her about it. I wonder if there's a recording somewhere.
Well, hopefully, right? Or at least 800 people come up and say, "Hey, I heard about you.
Oh, yeah.
You upstaged your husband actually for a moment."
Yeah, that's true. That
And you weren't
probably
even
did
there.
happen later, yeah. Yeah, everywhere we go. We'd be sitting, a few years ago, we were sitting on a plane to go to California. She's retired now, but, there's these kids. We always hear how old the kids are. We're sitting on the plane, and somebody walks by, and they stop, and they're looking at us. I'm thinking, oh, no. But it's her. They're like, "Mary, you delivered our baby." And he's like 18 years old now. It's like, oh, that's so sweet. But people remember their nurses.
Oh, that's got to be really amazing.
Yeah, it
Especially
is
with
amazing.
something like being a delivery nurse. Because
Yeah, well, all of those ladies do great work, and they were in, and there are some men too. But they're there at the most important moment of someone's life, Excuse me, and everybody remembers that.
it's such a stressful moment, too.
Yeah.
It's like people who are really good with weddings and planning weddings. I don't know how it works because I had one, and I will never want to relive that day.
Did you
ever
have to
again.
plan it? Because that's kind of unusual, JJ.
So what it was for me is I said a lot of yes dears.
Yeah, that's
and then my big mistake was at one point I said, "Who cares?" Well, she cares.
Ooh.
And so I just didn't realize burlap was that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And so I learned
Burlap
an important
tux?
lesson.
Were you wearing a burlap tux? That would have been cool.
I was not. All I wanted was a bagpiper. That's it. And I got it.
Did you
So,
get it?
Your wedding planning was a success because you had a meatball buffet.
That's right.
That's also good.
I
That
planned
was
the
fantastic.
Shake things up a little bit.
food. Right.
Those Asian spicy meatballs. Oh my goodness! Sorry. Yeah.
When our youngest son got married 7 years ago now, it was in Minneapolis, and the bride's parents, did the thing. And the greatest thing about that wedding was it was at the Nicollet Island Pavilion.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah. So we had the wedding out on the patio and then went inside. So it was all in one place. And as we left the wedding, sometimes you'll see people handing out wine, but the bride's dad, God love him, Mike Martz, he had people also handing out beer. So that was really, that was the best wedding ever, Wedding's over. Let's get some beer. It'd be great. Don't have to go to the bar. Just the guy standing there with trays full of cups of keg beer.
Oh, that's perfect.
It was wonderful. Yeah. So,
Yeah, the sooner that you can get alcohol into the hands of people who are attending your wedding, maybe because they want to be there, but also they feel a duty to be there.
because they got all the speeches coming up they got to listen to.
Oh, yeah.
That's the bribe you're paying them to get there. It's
That's
like,
right.
I know this is taking half of your day. You would have rather stayed home and watched Netflix. Come to this wedding, you'll be drunk.
Yeah.
At
We'll
one
get
point, right?
you drunk.
Of course, some of them are drunk when they get there, but
Yep.
that's another story. So, anyway, yeah.
Let's talk tourism now.
Okay.
So what year do you end up joining the?
I've been there
North Dakota
7
Tourism?
years. I've been there since 2012, so it's been a great late life career change. I count myself lucky to have that opportunity. Not many people get to start a new career at that age. I was pretty old.
Well, and why? I'm just curious. Why?
Why did I do it?
Yeah.
Well, I had basically been flushed out of the place I had worked for many years. I was the GM at Channel 11 and then also Channel 4 I was the GM for 12 years. In the last 7, we had both stations. And more importantly than that, though, probably from a whiplash standpoint, is we had like 5 ownership changes in 15 years. And that's hard on people. It's hard on your staff, and it's hard to navigate. I was pretty proud of the fact that we got through actually all, at least into the 6th owner, pretty well unscathed. But everybody, you got to, when I say whiplash, I mean, you got to change constantly because every owner has a different idea of how they want to do it. And everybody thinks they can make more money, which is why they buy it, because they think it's underperforming, but it really isn't. But they're going to make it perform better because they're going to turn around and sell it again, which the company that owns them now finally is a true broadcasting company, and I think they'll keep them as long as anyone does anyway. But we went through this 5 times. And the last group, I found a way to get along with all of them. I ended up being friends with the owners of the last 2 or 3 owners. But the last one, I don't know if I ran out of gas. Adaptation gas. I think you can only do that so many times, and they didn't like me, and I can think of some good reasons why they didn't, because I didn't want to do what they said, and I didn't really like them because I didn't want to do what they said, and I didn't like it, so we just parted ways. And then so that I was on the bricks for like 7 months, which was actually great. I was off the whole summer, I think, of 2010. Yeah, was off for 6 or 7 months, but it covered the summer. It went from like May into the fall. And man, being off, teachers are right. Being off in the summer is the bomb.
Yeah.
Is that an antiquated term now?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
No. We still, I mean, we talked about Wu-Tang Clan already. So.
Yeah, it's groovy.
It sounds fresh when you say it, Charlie.
It's far out of sight. So that was good. I got to play a lot of golf, and then it was also the same time my mother-in-law was in the nursing home, and she died that summer. So it was good that I was around, But, by fall, I'm getting like, oh, my, I got to work. First of all, I was neither financially nor emotionally prepared to retire. Still am not, frankly. And so, but I found out it was hard to get jobs because everyone thought of me as that guy that was on TV. And nobody considered the fact that I'd been managing this, 8-figure company for 12 years. They just didn't see it. And I would apply for like management level jobs in different businesses because I knew I could probably do it. But, and they would I just get, nah, they're just that TV guy, what does he know? He doesn't know anything about business. And so I get it. And so then, getting pretty depressed that fall, I got to do something. And, because the severance is running out and, I got to go. So I hear that my friend Milo up in Grand Forks, who'd been anchoring at WDAZ for a long time, was going to go to, I think he went to UND. I went, well, what the hell? I called Cassie Walder, who was the news director. I texted her or Facebooked her or something, and I said, hey, just is there any off chance that you'd want to, employ an old guy to come up and co-anchor with you? And so it worked out. So then I commuted to Grand Forks for 18 months. And I thought that was going to be the end of my career. I'd still be doing that probably I wouldn't be because it's not there anymore. But they don't do separate newscasts there anymore. Sooner or later that was going to end. But I thought that was where my career would end. But then I heard that Cole Carley was going to retire.
By the way, Cole Carley, one of my favorite people on the planet.
Great guy.
Amazing dude.
Did a great job for like 21 years at the CVB. I'm only the third executive of the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo CVB, which is kind of amazing when you think about it because it started in the early 80s. Vince Lindstrom, Cole Carley, and me. So anyway, I applied. And I had applied for other jobs like that. I applied for the Economic Development Corporation job a couple times. But they just, Ian, it's just not what they're looking for. They didn't think I had what they were looking for. And they were probably right. But so then I applied for this tourism job, the CVB, and I thought, well, I know the community, And so the guy they hired to recruit called me up. First 2 calls I had with him, first words out of his mouth, he says, you really don't fit the profile that we're looking for. Well, and I'm thinking, well, thanks, you called me anyway. He says, yeah, but I looked at your resume. I think I should talk to you, but I don't have time right now. Can we set up a call? So we called. We talked for like 45 minutes, and he just asked about my background, and I don't, he wanted to know about the management aspect of it, of course, and then the marketing aspect, because marketing is what we do. I said, well, I never studied marketing, but I've worked in television for 38 years or broadcasting for 38 years. I've been around a lot of marketers, and I've worked, especially the last dozen years when I was GM, I also got heavily involved in sales. So I know what it's like. I know how it works, and I know you have to hire good people to do it for you and then help guide them. And so he asked about how many people you ever managed? I said, well, it was, it would vary because it depended on who owned us and how many TV stations were there. I said, but it was anywhere from like 65 to 100 people on the staff. He says, oh, well, how big was the budget? And I said, well, it was like, I think that's proprietary. I said, but I can tell you we had like 7-digit expenses and 8-digit revenue the last few years I was there. He says, oh. Okay. And then so we talked a little bit more, and then he says, okay, well, I got some other people to call. I'll let you know, not too excited, but so then he calls me back like a week later. Again, first words out of his mouth are, you really don't fit the profile, but I want to talk to you again. And now I'm thinking I might have a slim chance at this. So ultimately, by the third time I talked to him, I felt like he was coaching me. And I'm pretty sure, I know I wasn't their first choice. I got into the round of finalists, and I think they offered it to at least one other person before me, maybe 2. I don't care because I got a great job and I really like it. And it's something that I've tried to grow into. There were, I had a lot to learn. Didn't really know anything about the hospitality business, but marketing is marketing, and you just need to find the right people to work for you and do the work.
Well, I'd like to pay you a compliment. I think it's the most active that the CVB's ever been. I think that we're seeing more.
Thank you.
Where the activities there, the proof is in the pudding, because we're seeing people come from all over the country, all over the globe, to make Fargo a destination.
Well, it's a fun thing to promote, and I came into it at a really good time because the town is growing. The downtown is vibrant. We have all sorts of growth out on the West Fargo side. West Fargo hadn't been a member of the CVB until they joined a year after I started, largely because they didn't have a lot of hotel activity going on out there. But then they started getting some new hotels like the Element and the DoubleTree and now the Homewood out there, and then they've got several others that have come along, and they've got really good, vibrant, lovely properties. And so suddenly they're like, we should probably join the CVB because we want to be on the list.
Yep.
Excuse me, for the things that they do. So they joined up. So that was helpful. And there's just so much going on out there, and so much going on down here. The beauty of it is this dawned on me like a couple of years into it, because a lot of people will say, I'm sure you guys run into this, you're kind of downtown denizens yourself, but a lot of people around town still say, I don't want to go downtown. It's too crowded. You can't find a place to park. I just don't like it down there. And that's okay, because we have enough people now. The town's gotten big enough. It can support kind of these district concepts, so you can either come down. You can come downtown if you want to, but there's also just a really vibrant scene out on Veterans Boulevard. Look at all the places to eat and drink and shop and all that stuff out there. Of course, we have West Acres, which is wonderful, and they have this whole new concept with a eating district in the front. Crave just opened out there. That's going to be wonderful. So the town has kind of reached a critical mass point, a tipping point, if you would, where I think it can support multiple districts. And West Fargo is just in the process of trying to redefine its downtown area. They have some new buildings, and they're trying to elevate that. And they need, and I know they are thinking in terms of making it its own district that will attract people on its own. And they understand that they can't be downtown Fargo because they're too far away. Moorhead has the advantage. The two downtowns are really together, and ultimately it's going to be looked at as one downtown. That's my fervent belief. It's going to take a while. I'll probably be dead by the time it all comes to be. But like that Mid-America Steel site, for instance, I think is the key.
Huge.
It's the key to tying the two downtowns together, because whatever they put there, I'm sure it'll be mixed use. If you're living there, have a great view of the river and whatever, and you walk out there on what is NP Avenue, right? It's NP and Center in Moorhead. You walk out the door, and you're probably about the same distance from that U.S. Bank building in Moorhead as you are from Broadway. So you could choose to go either way depending on what's over there. And if downtown Moorhead can develop the way they want it to, that'll be a good thing, and they'll get in on more of that action. And then I think the other thing that completed is ultimately we need a pedestrian bridge from the new Civic Plaza on the Fargo side over 2nd Street, and then also over the river into Viking Ship Park.
Yep, agreed.
And then it'll all tie together. And I think ultimately that's what's going to happen if things are managed properly.
I would also love to see, and you probably sit on this, the performing arts, the idea of a performing arts center.
I'm on the task force, yes.
I would love to see that in the FM area. I mean, you can't put the cart before the horse. We need to make sure that we can sustain it, and it's something that people would actually patronize. But I really think, I always say the arts make sense.
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about SENSE. I'm talking about CENTS.
Both.
And those turn into hundreds of dollars.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
we're big supporters of art. I'm a big supporter of building that. I also need meeting space, but I'm not arguing for a standalone convention center. I just want a 40,000 square foot room added somewhere.
That's not a Quonset.
Yeah, exactly. A couple, and there are a couple proposals. The Dome is one. There's a hotel that stepped up and might think about it if the city will help. So we're kind of in the process of trying to figure out what's going to happen there. And the Performing Arts Center, I think, will be a piece of that puzzle. Yes, a Performing Arts Center downtown would be a gem for downtown, and would bring it just ties in so nicely to everything here. And I hope we can make it work. I hope the city can find a way to make it work.
I always look at when the Blenders are here, or heck, when Chris Christopherson was here just recently, all the restaurants are full downtown.
Yeah.
All of the bars are full both before and after the concert. And so if we give people a reason who they might be the people who say, I don't like to go downtown. Mm-hmm. Give them a reason to come downtown.
They come for that, and then they might like it. Yeah.
And I think they're going to see how big of our downtown, and largely thanks to, what the Kilbourne group is doing with Block 9, which is enormous. It's so we've had a chance right outside our studio faces the building. We've had a chance to watch it go up.
Yeah, we've got some windows now. That's good.
Yeah.
But just the other day, I was walking downtown, and I thought, I feel like I'm walking in downtown Chicago again.
Yeah,
There's people.
It's come a long way.
When you think of Fargo from 1999 to 2019, what a huge transformation without losing its heart at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Kind of gained its heart back, I think, is what happened. I remember when, I think this was like 2001. So it was right after the Hodo opened. And I had never actually been there, but our owner at the time was a great guy, Robert Gluck, and he had some people in town from one of the syndicators. He says, come on, we're going to have dinner down at the Hodo. I said, oh, great, I've never eaten there. And so I come downtown, I'm driving down Broadway, and I'm like, I can't find a place to park. This is fabulous. I mean, I had to park like 2 blocks away, which is, you can always find a place to park, by the way. But I would never have expected at that point in time that would happen. And suddenly I realized things are starting to change down here. This is really coming along. And of course, been going on for almost 20 years now. So it's great.
What do you think is the thing, the hardest sell point when you're talking to people outside of the area? Because I know you guys go to conventions. You're constantly giving people the idea that
pitch.
Fargo is the place that they need to come. What's the hardest thing? What's the thing you hear over and over that people assume about Fargo that's incorrect?
Well, you know what number one is, the hardest thing. It's winter, and we don't actively try to recruit true tourism in the winter, like, generic tourism. That's a bad way to call it, but leisure travel would be what we call it. Because I work very closely with our international marketing thing, which I could tell you more about if you were interested. But anyway, where it's always, well, what's the best time to come? And I said, well, if you're coming from Oslo or Zurich, sometime, between May and end of September, that's what you should aim for, because that's what we want them to have a good time and not have to get stranded somewhere,
right,
in a hotel room for 3 nights because of a storm. But when it comes to conferences, weather comes up, but we can usually work around that. The other thing I hear is, well, it's kind of hard to get to Fargo, it's always got to be a connection. And this came up last week. I was at a pharmaceutical meeting planners conference in Atlantic City. And it dawned on me that I think I have a comeback for this now. Having been to Atlantic City and to Anaheim twice in the last year, I said, okay, I get that. You do probably, your people are going to have to take one more connection, either from Chicago or Denver or Minneapolis. Probably that's where they're going to connect, maybe Phoenix. But here's the thing. I said, you're in Atlantic City right now. How did you get here? Because I could share my experience with you. And they're like, oh, yeah, it was extremely hard to get here. I said, well, you're here. My experience was I had to fly to Philadelphia and take a $120 hour and 15-minute Uber ride to get to Atlantic City. There's like a couple tiny airlines that fly into Atlantic City. You can't, it's not practical for anybody like me anyway.
Yeah.
And then it was a $165 hour and 15-minute Uber ride back to the Philadelphia airport. I said, here's the thing. Yeah, you might have to make one more connection in Minneapolis or Chicago or Denver to get to Fargo. But once you get to Fargo, you are 15 minutes from where you're going.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to get around. In fact, if you choose to rent a car, it'll be easy for you to drive it. And we'll take care of you. That's what I always have to tell them. I said, you are going to be so surprised when your people come to Fargo. We will not let them not have a good time. First of all, that's what the people on our staff do. They're outstanding at it. We will make sure that everything goes well. We have great properties. You're just going to love the downtown. You're going to love the shopping districts out at West Acres. It's just great, and everyone is very friendly. And so that's the selling point that we have to hit. But it's hard to get over that. It's hard to get to thing, especially for conferences and conventions, that they get hung up on that. And so, but now that I've been to Atlantic City, and Anaheim's the same way, really. I've been to conferences in Anaheim twice in the last two summers. if you fly into Orange County, I think it's a little shorter, but you can't always do that. I ended up having to fly into LAX both times. It's an hour and it's $100 to get there. You know,
right? There's always going to be some sort of difficulty with the travel, no matter where you're going. Even if it's a direct flight from where you are to Chicago, you still have to land at O'Hare.
Right. You've got an hour travel into the city. No matter which way you go.
The busiest airport in the U.S.
Chicago's another good example.
So many things that will also complicate your flight or your travel in some way.
Is there something that we need to add here, in your opinion, that we just need to get on the ball with? That is it's not convention space.
That's the first thing, because there are literally convention space. There are literally dozens. We have a 3-page list of things that either would have for sure come or would have considered coming or are coming now but are going to outgrow us, that we can't get to come or are going to lose because we don't have big enough space for them. So that's the number one thing for the convention. Number one, number two, and number three. But you always need more attractions, and that's why. Good segue, because I testified before the Legacy Fund Committee Tuesday night.
Did you now?
Yes, because
I was going to say, we got a lot of money sitting there that we could be putting to use.
A lot of money. Our Destination Marketing Association of North Dakota has signed off on a proposal, and the Travel Alliance Partnership too, which is some of the same people, but then some others, a proposal we're asking them to set aside up to $15 million in Legacy Fund money in a matching grant program for tourism enhancements around the state. And I'm thinking, we have a capital fund here at the CVB, and from that we give some pretty substantial grants to help things that help promote things. A lot of it has gone to sporting things because it's pretty easy to quantify how that happens. Sure. We gave money to the Cullen Hockey Center, for instance, the Shields Arena, the Halbert Aquatic Center, fabulous thing for us, opened up a whole new sport of tournaments and events that we can bring here that we're just starting to tap that. And we actually made a conscious decision, like the second, third year I was here, to expand our sports department because we weren't getting any more meeting space and we can't do a lot more in that space. But we have lots of sporting facilities and we can do a lot with that. So we expanded our sports department. We have 4 people in there now. And it's paying off. We're getting more things. They know what they're doing. They're doing a great job of working with local groups. We're having our 3rd annual sports summit that our director of sports, Kaylee Mork, is putting on Monday night, where we invite all the local sporting groups who do tournaments or participate in tournaments in to remind them of how we can help them and what we will do. We do this in conjunction with the park districts. You just have to get the word out and let people know what you can do. And I appreciate you said the CVB is more visible. We're trying to be more visible that way and tell people how we can help bring things into town. So that we need the space, and then we need those more attractions. And if we could get this grant set up through the state, and it's not, it can't be just a Fargo idea. It's the whole state is embracing it. But I can immediately think of multiple things around here. The Red River Zoo, Sally and Jackie from the Air Museum came and supported me. I mentioned them when I testified, because they both have projects sitting out there that they would love to do if they could raise the money. Think if they could get a $500,000 grant from the state, Bonanzaville, but take it all across the state. The Dinosaur Museum in Dickinson, the Enchanted Highway, all of these things they could use. They need help to make them more attractive. And we kind of came up with the idea, controversial as it was somewhat in the legislature, the idea percolated after we all supported the Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library at Medora because we know it will bring more people to the state and they'll come across the state. But, so that's $50 million. Well, for a fraction of that, we could help all these other smaller things around the state. And the bottom line that we're selling this on, sorry, I'm on a little bit of a rant now.
Keep going.
The bottom line I'm selling this on is tourism is economic development by itself. Absolutely, unquestionable. But tourism also promotes the same things that economic developers promote. And I've had many conversations about this with my friend Joe Raso at the Economic Development Corporation and his predecessor, Jim Garton. They both agreed that yes, everything... We all are basically promoting the same things, just for slightly different reasons. Because nobody moves to a place without visiting first. And the same things that make a place attractive to visitors also make them attractive to people who want to live here. People who already live here, for sure, it enhances their lives to have more amenities, zoos, air museums, performing arts centers, things like that. They all contribute to the quality of life in a place. So that attracts tourists, but it also makes it a place that somebody might want to come and visit and say, you know, they got like thousands of open jobs there. I think I might think about that. Or a business that's looking to expand might say, that's a great place where people want to live. So it's all economic development. And that's the way we're trying to convince the legislature that this is not just a tourism play. This is for the whole state. You have a huge workforce problem across North Dakota. Thousands, literally thousands of open jobs every day. You need to do something to help make the state more attractive to people who might want to live here and take those jobs.
I was just chatting with somebody about the Moorhead school bond that just passed.
Yeah.
And this person was in real estate, and they said, this is the best thing that's happened to real estate in Moorhead. And I said, well, what are you talking about? I mean, it wasn't the opposition saying, well, it's going to cost you more in property taxes. And they said, no. A city that invests in its school system is going to be able to handle more students. It's going to have more options and more opportunities, which means more people are going to move here.
That's right.
Which means my business is so much bigger.
Yep.
There's, after that vote, she got 2 calls from developers who said, I'm looking at land.
Bingo.
And I think that you're right. There are all these things that we look at and we say tourism is just tourism, but it's not. It's so much more. Also, I want to compliment you on this too, Charlie. When we had
No, please don't.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. But
when my wife
That's
was
the second half of the show.
right. When my wife was planning our wedding, one of the things we had to plan around was the 150 people who are coming from out of town to this wedding.
Yeah.
And she said, I want to put together like a welcome gift for them when they check into the hotel. And so she said, I'm going to go out to the CVB. And I was like, what are you going to go out to the CVB for? And she goes, well, I figure if someone's going to help me put this thing together of like, welcome to Fargo, the CVB should know it. You guys hooked her up. I mean, there was everything from coloring books to people who had kids to information. There's like a book that you guys had put together that had like coupons for different businesses that were around that we popped in there.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And I said, they gave this to you at the CVB? And she goes, yeah. They really took great care of me. And then they said, what hotel have you guys planned for? And we said, well, we really haven't picked one yet. And they're like, oh, you should talk to. And then they wrote down the name of somebody at a hotel that was near our wedding venue and said, like, talk to this person in sales and they'll take care of you. And so she goes, everything was taken care of when we were at the CVB. And so we live in Fargo, and yet we're using the services.
Yeah, that's the whole point, and I'm glad that worked out for her. And I know everyone would help her if she came out. We get requests like that all the time, I mean, we have to, 150 people, that's great. We're happy to help bring 150 people to town. It's a wonderful thing. 150 person, if it's, so maybe there's 100 room nights. That's not nothing. That's a big thing to us, and we want people to have a good experience when they come, and maybe they'll come back and visit sometime. That's the whole point.
They came in late October. They loved the look of the leaves.
Yes,
perfect.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of notion about how many people who say come here for school, for college, then decide, oh, I'm going to stay here after the experience from that?
I don't have a stat in my head for that. Joe and his people at the EDC could probably help you with that. But I do, anecdotally, I know that it has changed significantly in the last 20 years. I think you guys have been around here long enough to remember hearing about what they called the brain drain, right?
Yep.
So people would go to college here, and then they would go off somewhere. I'm going to go to Minneapolis. I'm going to go to Seattle. I got to get out of here. That's not happening as much anymore. More and more of them are staying here. And that's another thing that people need to recognize, that education in where you are, if you educate people where you are, they're more likely to stay there than they are to educate somewhere else and come up here. It's just a no-brainer, really, if you think about that. That's why, I could think of all sorts of political things to say about things that should be done to help higher education. That's why that career academy in Moorhead, great thing, and they're trying to build one in Fargo. They want to get going in Fargo. Those career academies are a great thing. Moorhead got a big jump on that. That's a great thing that they're going to have that will help people learn skills, not a 4-year college, but starting in high school, they're going to learn skills that will help them decide what they're going to be and probably keep them around longer.
Right.
Personally, and I don't mean this to be a political statement, this is just my own view of economics. I don't know why we even have out-of-state tuition at our colleges in North Dakota. When you have thousands of open jobs, why would you put up some sort of roadblock to keep people from coming here? You know, unless there's some evidence that it's somehow stopping North Dakota kids from going to those schools, you'd have to look. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. You know, like there was a move a couple of years ago to maybe eliminate the tuition reciprocity with Minnesota. Somebody said, well, why are we subsidizing those Minnesota students? Well, okay, first of all, if you are subsidizing them, it makes sense because they're more likely to stay here and work. You got all these jobs, so you want to bring people to come here. And then they did the fiscal note on it. It died after they did the fiscal note because they found out if you did that, you'd actually end up losing millions of dollars because people wouldn't come anymore. So all those things help bring people here. But yes, if they come here and go to college, they're much more likely to take a job here, and more likely now than they ever were because there's more opportunity all across the state and certainly here in Fargo-Moorhead.
Well, that's probably the age range of people you want to aim for too, because that's the age range where people might be starting new families, looking at where do I set roots down once I'm done with school. So it makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. So they need to find ways to do that. I hope it all comes together. But yeah, and then the legislature's got a daunting task to figure out what to do with that money. This huge amount of money, and there are all sorts of competing requests for it. But if you want to think in terms of legacy, I think our proposal fits that because it's going to be permanent enhancements for things that people will want to visit, but also will make them want to live here.
Oh, I think without a doubt. And I think $15 million, you guys should quadruple that and keep asking for more and more and more, because that seems like an easy check to want to write.
Well, yeah, and they're not going to write the check unless somebody comes with a plan and gets a 1-to-1 match. So, so if the Air Museum or the zoo wants to do a project that's a $3 to $5 million project, if they ask for $250,000 to $500,000 from them, they're going to get it matched by somebody else,
right?
And it's all for the greater good, and it's all for permanent things. It's not for operating expenses. We don't want to do that. That's not the way it's supposed to be, But there are so many things that could be made better and more attractive to people that already exist. Or if somebody, God love them, if they wanted to start a new attraction, but that's harder to do,
There are a couple things that I can't believe Fargo hasn't had yet. And, there's a whole handful of chain restaurants that I'm surprised that we don't have, that haven't come through here, that for whatever reason people judge us a little bit on. Like, you guys don't have a Red Robin. And I don't even care for Red Robin food myself, but I'd rather have it so I can have people stop comparing me to like Woodbury, North Dakota or Minnesota and say, well, you guys don't even have a Red Robin in Fargo.
I know.
That's the high water mark for a lot of people.
It is so stupid to think about that, but it's I have a lot of conversations just like you do with people outside the area. And I'm sure.
So don't tell them they're stupid, JJ. That's not a good way.
Right,
that's not the way we want to be. But you can tell them we have so many other great options.
We've got so many other all-you-can-eat fry places. Trust me, you'll love it. Try the cheese Frenchie at Mom's Kitchen.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, the aquatic park, huge. Yeah. I can't believe
it's a world-class facility.
It really is, and that's so great. I'm so glad to see that.
Yeah.
And every now and then people say like, "Well, why don't we have something like Valley Fair?" I don't think that we could sustain an amusement park up here.
Six Flags over Fargo. Yeah. No, people ask about that. Yeah, you're right. I don't think we have quite the population base for that. But
and I don't think that we need it. I don't think that that's part of our look.
Yeah, so to speak. It's not like we have a bunch of unemployed carnies around here that we need to worry about getting jobs and stuff. That's not what we're trying to stimulate.
It's a lot of teenagers, Tucker. It's a lot of teenagers.
Teenagers, carnies are the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Oh, are they? In my head, they are the same thing.
Okay, tough crowd. Yeah, it would be great to have something like that, but that's not really, I don't think that's what we're going to be anytime in the next 30 to 50 years. But I think instead we are a place that people enjoy visiting and really will want to live once they realize how wonderful it is here. It's such a great place to raise kids,
Well, it's cost efficient too. I lived in Chicago. I paid, rent in Chicago.
Yeah.
And while it was great, I found that for the most part, I never left my neighborhood in Chicago. You that's where your grocery store is, and I had a place close to the second city, and you just never really find a reason to leave that. And so I think when people get to Fargo and they say, "Oh, it's just like living in any other big city. You find your neighborhood, and that's the one you stick in most of the time. And
and that ties into what I was saying before. Now we are big enough that we have those neighborhood things, So it's great. Yeah, big cities are just a whole bunch of neighborhoods cobbled together generally. It's kind of cool.
I also love Frostival, by the way, too. And I know that that's kind of been something that started with when you got there.
Yeah, we started that. We did it 4 years in a row. It's morphing this year.
I know. I'm
into
excited
something
about
else.
it.
It's going to, the park districts are stepping up and doing more of it. We're not going to have the big downtown thing again. It was a lot for our staff to sustain, and people, because people have asked about that. And we can't keep it going that way for our staff, but the park districts are stepping up. They want to keep it going. They want to spread it out over like 6 weekends. I think it's going to be.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun, and we're supporting them in that. So we believe it will live on and continue to be a fun thing. The DCP is getting involved. As I said, we never could have done it without the park districts because they ran all the stuff. So they're just going to kind of take it over, and we're going to help them out with marketing and things like that.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's great. We needed something to make people understand that nobody just goes and hides in their basement all winter,
Yeah, I think if for a while our region fought the idea of like, well, do they even have the internet there? Or are they still using a horse and buggy?
You have freeways?
And then we had then the movie Fargo comes out, which I loved when I was like in LA because it was a great calling card and people were interested in talking to someone from Fargo.
Yeah.
But most of the conversation was dispelling myths about the area. And I really love that the CVB has that wood chipper because it is a great calling card for us. And we just have to remind people like, yep, we're pretty hip.
Yeah.
We know what's what up here.
Yeah.
Amazon delivers. You can also shop at the mom and pop boutiques and find things you're not going to find online. There's great places to eat. There are great places to have an experience. Like you mentioned, West Acres. I really love the fact that they're leaning into the idea that it's retail and experience that makes people want to come
about
out
experiences
there.
Now.
It really is, isn't it? Everyone wants that little thing. And lastly, I want to compliment the CVB on this. So I run a comedy troupe.
Yes.
And
the Line Benders.
The Line Benders, yeah. Trust me, I plug it a lot on this podcast.
Good move.
But I would say at least a third of our business is referral through the CVB.
Oh, good.
From people who are planning a holiday get together or they're bringing in a group and they ask about entertainment options. And you guys have made it easy for those groups to have a platform.
Well, it's part of the service we should provide. I mean, because when we're bringing groups into town, they ask us for entertainment, both for the people or the trailing spouses that come with. So we got a whole list of that stuff, and you are on it.
Yep,
Don't worry.
I sure am. Yeah.
Yes.
What's the weirdest thing you guys get requests for? Like, we're going to need a place to store 150 sheep.
Never had that one.
Oh yeah, not a lot of shepherds conventions wanting to get into town.
Maybe we should go after that niche. Oh man, I'm sure my staff could tell you all sorts of weird requests. We get a lot of requests that probably should go to other people, but that's fine. We usually steer them in that direction. I'm blanking on any one specific thing. I know we just had one this week that was a request that was kind of strange. A
little bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah, that we didn't really know what to do about. But occasionally we'll get stuff like that. Why? Oh, well, one woman came in one time in the spring and wanted to see me because my friend Darren Dunlop at the Chamber had sent her to me. Darren. She comes to say, you guys really ought to do something about this. Was in the spring, right, when it's windy and dirty outside. And she says, you guys really need to do something about all the paper and dirt and stuff that blows up against the fences along the interstate here. It looks horrible. And I'm like, okay, no.
All right,
I understand what you're saying, but it's not. That doesn't quite. We don't really have the cleanup crew for that. But I'll see what I can. I'll see what I can do. But I can't. It's not really my job to. I suppose we could adopt a highway. Our staff should adopt a highway.
You should have just sent her to the dean of NDSU or something and just seen how many times she could be passed from organization to organization.
Yeah,
so finally someone would pick up that paper.
They're going to know about as much about it as I do. That's for sure.
Yeah, those are the things. And I suppose your staff really has to keep their finger on the pulse of what's happening in Fargo, too.
Oh, yeah, they're really good at that, especially our marketing department. We have 4 people in our marketing. I mean, we're all in the marketing department. We're a destination marketing organization. But we have convention sales, we have sports sales, and then we have marketing, which handles all the advertising, the leisure travel stuff, and things like that. And I mentioned before international travel. I work on that. And also Mallory, our director of sales, helps me with that. But we're going to start rolling Andy Thorson, our director of marketing, into that too, because international marketing really is more leisure traveler. So we're going to try to some groups, but it's mostly leisure travel. So, and we do our international marketing in a 5-state consortium, which is kind of a genius thing, I think. Wasn't my idea. So it's North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho just rejoined. They weren't in it for a while. And we sell it as the Great American West. And the whole point being that if you're trying to lure visitors from across the sea, they're not just going to come to Fargo. They're not just going to come to Rapid City. They're not just going to go to Minneapolis. I mean, they have long vacations. If they're going to fly into the States, they want to spend some time. They like to rent a car. Most of the people we deal with are what they call fly drive. Fly somewhere, get a car, and go on a road trip. That's what they want to do. And we sell ourselves as the ultimate Western road trip. 5 states, 5 national parks, wide open spaces. It's a little difficult for us, but we've adapted because it's, Great American West. It's very much cowboys and Native American stuff, history. And we have some of that here, but I always tell them that. I said, we have quite a bit of that history here, but it's not the primary thing you're going to find when you get here. It's not the theme of our community. We're more of an urban center, and then we proceed to sell them on the downtown and all this stuff. And then we're kind of the gateway. We're the east coast of the Great American West, and you're going to come here, fly to Minneapolis, get a car. It's 3.5-hour drive from Minneapolis Airport to Fargo. Hit the Mall of America either on the way in or the way back. But you're also going to find lots of great shopping here. They all want to go to the Mall of America, by the way.
Sure.
But we have great shopping here, both at West Acres and downtown. You're going to love what's here, and then from there, then you will launch you west, and then you can head out toward the wide open spaces, get to Bismarck, Fort Abraham Lincoln. In our states here, you can follow the trail of General Custer, basically, because you'll see Fort Abraham Lincoln where he lived and where he left from, where the 7th Cavalry left from. And a lot of people are interested in that kind of history. And then you can go into Montana, you can go right over to the Little Bighorn Battlefield. By the way, I was there this summer for the first time. Mary and I went there. Fabulous experience.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, it's the saddest place I've ever been, but yet it's so fascinating. I've read a couple books about it, and the way they have it laid out, it's just, you can actually get a view of it. You can see what happened at these different places. Anyway, so you can do that. You can go to, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, Yellowstone National Park, Grand Teton National Park, Glacier National Park. You've got Mount Rushmore National Monument, plus you got the Badlands National Park near it in South Dakota. So many things to see. And then Idaho, you got Coeur d'Alene and all. It's just beautiful. Cascade Mountains. So that's how we do it. And it's actually a pretty good deal. And we do this group, which is run by a company out of Wyoming, does its own conference every year called International Roundup. And it rotates among the states. I'm hoping that a year from this spring, 2021, I'm hoping and quite confident that it'll be in Fargo for the first time.
Cool.
That'll be great. But the great part of that is that they bring in like 40 foreign tour operators from all over Europe and Australia and bring them together. And then all the suppliers like us, hotels, attractions, whatever, can sign up and get an appointment with. It's a speed dating show.
Sure.
So these 40 tour operators each have some of them are journalists too, travel journalists, but they each have a table, and then we go and do 10-minute appointments with them each, and it's great. But even better than that is where you go, you spend like 4 days with them. You socialize together, you go on what we call a familiarization tour. We're not supposed to call it that anymore. I forget what I'm supposed to call it. Anyway, but if they come to Fargo, for instance, we'll have one day when all these tour operators will take them to we'll have like a 6 or 7 hour thing with lunch in the middle where we'll take them to all of our attractions. And and you never. The great thing is you get these tour operators to come, they learn to like it, and then they will go back and sell it to their clients, and that's what's happening. It's really working pretty well.
That's great. If someone else is doing the hard work and selling it for you,
well, yeah, you
all
have to
better.
recruit the salespeople in a case like this to get them to come.
I remember talking with somebody from Microsoft whose sole job was to go to resorts and spend a week there testing out the golf course and the massages and
Tough job.
to
Oof.
find out if it's the right fit for a Microsoft executive conference.
Yeah.
And so she was telling me, she's like, I'll go to Honolulu and have to spend a month in Honolulu because I've got 4 days at the Royal Palms and I've got 5 days at the Pink Palace and and I'm like, wow,
I gotta compare.
Right. It's gotta be a tough world you're living in. And she goes, it's sometimes I just crave a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I was like, anytime you want to switch, I'm more than happy
Something
to figure
tells me
that out.
hiring room service they'll make you one if you ask for one.
Right.
Or maybe there's a little grocery store. You just buy some bread, bring it to your room.
The simple things.
They all have little refrigerators in them. So,
Yeah,
so,
right. There you go. Although in Vegas now, the new thing is you open the fridge and they charge you. So it's not even if you take anything out, they charge you based on just opening the fridge. You break that seal once and then you got like a $10 charge on your room.
Oh,
That's why I like Fargo.
I have to go there twice next summer. And it's like,
Be careful.
Don't touch anything.
I'm going to use the refrigerator. I've noticed that though fewer and fewer hotels have the old minibar anymore. That seems to have become passe.
Yeah.
Most of them just have a refrigerator. you
I've
know?
noticed more and more hotels are adding the coffee maker inside your room.
Oh, yeah.
With the Keurigs and the
Yeah.
instant pots and stuff like that.
The one thing that doesn't make sense to me is I'll see refrigerators but no microwaves.
Yeah.
Which I think is why you would really want, one of the reasons why you'd want the fridge would be if you're going out and eating at places and you're like pizza or whatever, and you want to take some of it back to the hotel, you might want to eat some of it the next day. I wish you could nuke your food, but oftentimes they're not paired up. There's just no microwave.
Look at when you're looking for a hotel, Tucker, then, look at the amenities
Oh,
list.
I do.
They tell
I do.
you. Yeah.
does this,
Extended stay properties, they all have
Does it have a
microwaves.
microwave? I don't care about the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Does the CVB have an opinion one way or the other on the Airbnb world of today? We can cut that question if you
No,
rather make one.
it's fine. There are a couple different ways I can approach that. Well, it's another thing that brings people to town. Hoteliers, it's competition for hotels. And traditionally, we are supported by the lodging tax, right? But here's something for you. Just this year, we finally started collecting lodging tax from Airbnbs in Fargo. So I feel better about them now.
Oh, good.
And we're working on trying to get it in West Fargo. I think we will, and then I'll go after Moorhead. So at least they're paying their fair share now, which is great. And that's the way it should be. And I've never met an Airbnb owner who didn't think they should. There just wasn't a mechanism for it. And now the Airbnb people, because everything books through their website. I don't know if anybody here uses VRBO. That would be a separate thing. But I can tell you that, based on lodging tax returns for this year that have come in monthly, it's the equivalent of one of our, a small to medium-sized hotel and a relatively successful one. I mean, it's like, we're getting anywhere from $1,600 to $2,200 a month in lodging tax from Airbnbs. So they're not going away. They're a real thing, and if people choose to stay there, that's their choice. We don't promote them on our website. It would be kind of hard for us to do, but brings people to town. People come to town. We know they're going to spend money here.
Do you think it gives us a more metropolitan feel to have a vibrant, to have 50 5-star Airbnb places available?
Sure, why not? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people when they travel look for that, so it's good to have it as an alternative. Yeah, I think it's great.
Are people looking for boutique hotels too? Are they really looking for those?
We sell the boutique hotel idea a lot more to our international travelers because they like that kind of thing. People, it depends on who they are. Families are looking for something with a pool, or it'd be nice if we had a really fancy water park here, But several of the hotels have nice pool water park things. So a lot of families are looking for that. Families coming for tournaments, hockey tournaments. Hockey, by the way, is huge for us.
Oh, massive.
Fargo and Moorhead Youth Hockey combined last year did more than 12,000 room nights here in Fargo-Moorhead and West Fargo. That's big, and they're growing all the time. It probably will top 13,000 this year. The Cullen Hockey Center in Moorhead now is the first actual 3-sheet, one location thing. So they're going to have more, or at least bigger tournaments there. So it's probably going to go up. It's a huge thing. So those people, they want pools. The teams like to have a little meeting space. They're all looking for something different. Everybody's looking for a different experience in a hotel. And we are Switzerland when it comes to our hotels. You mentioned that someone recommended a hotel to your wife for the wedding. Well, that was based strictly on proximity to where your wedding was going to be held.
And to be honest, we didn't even know that hotel had existed.
Yeah, really? Well, that's great. Yep. Yeah, so we'll do that. And if people ask for a specific type of hotel, if they want to bring a conference, well, obviously it's going to be our full service hotels. And then if they're big enough, then we'll have spread out to ones nearby. But generally speaking, we don't, we sell all the hotels. That's the whole idea of it. We represent everybody. But of course, we'll tailor what we offer them as options to what fits their request.
Right. I'm sure if someone says, listen, we need a place that's got, a pool. It also needs to have some kind of on-site to feed 22 kids at a whim. It's like, okay, well, we don't have a lot of hotels that have, that built-in restaurant component to it.
Sure.
But here are a list of 10 that do. And
then if they know where their most of their tournament play is going to be, they're going to try to line up around there, that's just the way it works. So that's how we do it. We send out leads at people's requests.
It's very cool.
And we also do a housing bureau for the hockey tournaments too. So we handle all of the housing through that. That's part of our sports department services.
I know I've got a friend who does overnight stuff for a hotel here in Fargo. And she said the weirdest thing that she gets, and they know now where to recommend, is the hockey parents will come at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, be like, is there a 24-hour laundromat in this town?
Yeah.
And because they need to get the blood out of something, or, God forbid, you don't want 4 days of that same equipment. She was like, yeah. So you'll go to some of these 24-hour laundromats in Fargo when there's a hockey tournament in town. Full to the brim. And you'll see competing teams washing jerseys together. I mean, it is, it's like World War I on that Christmas Eve where everyone decided to be friends for just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all part of economic development, right?
It sure is.
They're putting money into the laundromat economy. That counts. It all counts.
How often do you think people talk about the laundromat economy?
I think we may have started something.
I'm stuck between the laundromat economy and grooming for guitarists for this podcast episode. I think grooming for guitarists is going to be the one, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, Charley Johnson, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show.
It's good to be here.
This was a lot of fun. We went in a lot of different directions.
That's life, isn't it, JJ?
Sure
life goes
is.
in a lot of directions, and you need to be able to adapt to wherever the conversation's going.
Darn tootin'.
That's what's nice about traveling. You meet so many different people, and you never know where the conversations are going to go. And you get to know different people from different places. So that's a plus. Same thing with visitors who come here. Chat them up. You're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff about the world.
And they didn't think that you were right for the job, huh? Wow, look at that.
Well, that wasn't the first choice. I understand it. I think it was someone who'd had worked in the CVB world, but
I think it just goes to show that you just need a passion for the place that you're pitching to people.
That's the most important thing. Whenever we're hiring somebody and I'm involved, I'll usually bring my staff in for like a second interview if I'm involved in the hiring, and I'll let them ask most of the questions. Usually I'll do a pre-interview, and find out if I can afford these people, because that's always an issue, But then if they come make a finalist round, I really only ask one question. The first question I ask them is, I need you to give me your 30 to 60 second elevator speech on why people should want to come and visit Fargo-Moorhead, West Fargo.
Very cool.
I know you guys could answer it. No problem.
Oh, yeah. I do it all the time. I always tell people, listen, when you're done with whatever vacation you're on, and I'm that guy on the plane who's like, hey, how's it going? We're going to be sitting next to each other. How about we chat for 3 hours?
Yeah.
Tucker, you would hate me on a plane like that.
I would just say catch some shows at Theater B, and if theater's not your thing, then let's just stop talking.
Stop by JJ Meets World on Saturday morning, and we'll put you on the show. But I really love what you guys are doing, and just keep doing whatever you guys have planned. Just keep it going. I really like it. I like it a lot as a citizen. I like it as someone who's passionate about this area. And I can't wait to find out if you guys do a commercial and you're like, JJ, you've hit that peak now where we want to sell with you on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we'll get there. That would be good.
Yeah.
Our new visitor guide comes out here in January, so I just saw the proofs of it yesterday. It looks great.
Cool.
Our team does a great job with that. So,
well, thanks again for stopping by.
thank you.
A huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring this podcast. Folks, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, contact Natalie Deutsch today, because Natalie Deutsch is not only a previous podcast guest, she's somebody who's going to care enough to sell your property for top dollar. She's also going to find you the best price possible if you're purchasing a new home. Last year on average, Natalie earned her clients $4,000 over list price on their homes and sold them faster than the market average. On average, Natalie's selling a home every 3.74 days. That's 2 homes a week. Those numbers don't lie. Find out why Natalie is one of the top agents in this entire market. Get a hold of her today, Natalie at hatchrealtyfm.com. You can also call 701-388-9338 or go on to livefargomoorhead.com. That's livefargomoorhead.com. Read all of her amazing reviews, and then listen to her episode of JJ Meets World. Thanks again to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com, and you can find direct contact info for JJ. You should seek out a YouTube clip of previous guest Steve Poitras saying goodbye to this episode's guest, Charley Johnson. And I feel like there's a moment where they said goodbye, and then there's a commercial break, and it's clear that Steve was supposed to say more about goodbye to Charley Johnson, because he comes back and pretty much reiterates everything he just said after the commercial break. It is, we're really putting the pieces together here at JJ Meets World.